Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast, the show for women who are seeking more fulfillment in life and simply not getting it from their current situation. We focus specifically on careers, but hey, we spend a lot of time in our careers, so making changes here will definitely create an impact in your overall happiness. I'm your host, Simone Morris, and my mission is to empower women to succeed. I believe that in order to powerfully own your career, you must decide and claim that you want to sit in the driver's seat. You must know that you deserve better and be willing to not only do the requisite work, but be willing to go out on a limb to ensure your success. Each episode focuses on profiling a leader who is clearly demonstrating ownership of their career. Join me and my guests as we explore career journeys and bring you actionable strategies to use to get into the driver's seat for your career. Because ultimately, your career is your responsibility. Let's get into the show.
Hi, everybody. It's Simone Morris. I just want to thank you for being a loyal listener for the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. It means so much to me that the podcast is growing in terms of the number of downloads, growing in terms of the number of countries that are listening to the podcast, and the people that are expressing interest in the programming and events that I do. So I want to bring to your attention just some information on how you can work with me. I have a career breakthrough program that is starting in October, and it's essentially 90 days focused on your career. An amazing opportunity to really roll up your sleeves and get into a mastermind sort of conversation about how to move forward with your career. The other opportunity to work with me is in the form of career coaching, one-on-one career coaching. And I would love to be your career coach and to really get you feeling responsible for your career journey and taking the actions that you need to get what it is you want for yourself in your career. So if you're interested in either option, please head over to www.careerbreakthroughcall.com. That's www.careerbreakthroughcall.com. I look forward to connecting with you and to learning more. And so please take advantage of that opportunity. And I look forward to learning more about your career story. Without further ado, let's get right over to this week's episode of the podcast. Thank you so much. I am pleased to be joined by Kanika Tolver in this episode. Kanika specializes in helping individuals establish themselves as the architect of their own lives. Kanika, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. What's that?
How are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm wonderful. And I'm excited for our listeners to just soak up all this wisdom and good stuff because you're doing a lot of great things. So tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you're currently doing.
Okay. I am a career coach, author, and speaker out of the Washington, D.C. area. Right now, I'm in the process of finishing up publishing my book, Career Rehab. And I'm actually working on this book that's going to be super awesome with Entrepreneur Press. So we're actually in the final stretches of editing this book called Career Rehab. And the subtitle of the book is Rebuild Your Personal Brand and Rethink the Way That You Work. I am an information technologist by trade, but I do really enjoy career coaching, and I really enjoy helping people be able to provide themselves some level of career restoration. Sometimes we need to rebuild our careers, so that's what I specialize in helping people do.
Awesome. So how do you find time to make all this work?
It's extremely stressful. It's extremely stressful because I am a full-time federal government employee. I do work as an IT project manager by day. I do a lot of my coaching on the weekends and evenings. And I also do a lot of my writing on the weekends and evenings, but I just think that it's important to be able to understand that whatever you want for your life and for your career, that it's important that you maximize the time that you do have. So whether that's writing in the morning, I write in the morning before I get on the train. whether that's sacrificing the last couple of months and not really being able to enjoy my weekends. That's what I've had to do because I am the architect of my own career. So I am in the process of really building my own personal brand. So I want to be, an example to my clients and to my family and friends.
And I think that you are. I like to call that the driver's seat in my language. So awesome. Kanika, can you tell us what was the career-defining moment that signified to you that you were in the driver's seat for your career?
It was when I left my federal government job in 2014. I was working in federal government majority of my career, and anyone that knows, about the Washington, D.C. area, it's one of those areas where a big population of people work for the federal government. It's like you either go to college, you go to the military, or you go work for the federal government. Those are like your three options. And I went to college and then I went right into the federal government, and I had a really good cushy job, but I was really unhappy. So I decided to revamp my resume and put my resume out on Indeed, LinkedIn, and different job board sites in 2014. And I actually got an interview with Deloitte. I didn't know who Deloitte Consulting was. I had never heard of them. Majority of my career was 100% in the federal government. I knew nothing about private sector. But being at an agency for 5 years and being extremely unhappy and working in a very toxic work environment and not having true ownership, I felt like I didn't have ownership of my career at that particular time. So I decided to take control back, and it was the best decision that I ever made.
I love that. So what was the messaging that you were telling yourself? How are you pepping yourself up?
What I did was I really, for a couple of months prior to getting the interview, recruiter called me and then I got scared. And then I was like, I don't think that I'm ready. I can't do this. So then I went back to work after the holidays, and things at my job was still the same. And I'm like, I'm going to reach back out to this recruiter and I'm going to go ahead and go on the interview. So I prepared myself for the interview by saying that after I did research about Deloitte and I realized they were a global business and they were known all over the world, I said, this is a defining moment for me to associate myself with a brand. And I feel like at that time I only had a federal government brand. So for me, I felt like it was an opportunity. It was kind of like when you think about LeBron having to go play for Miami, and then he went back to go play for his home team. It was kind of like I had to go back and realize that I had to join forces with a winning team to become a winner.
I love that.
You know what I mean? Because in order for us to be champions of our career, sometimes we have to associate ourselves with other organizations and companies that can mold and shape and make you into a champion. I wasn't getting that from my federal government job.
What a great story and so inspirational. Tell us, in your own words, what is your formula for owning your career?
I think one of the formulas that I believe that is important to owning your career is being able to build your brand by speed dating jobs. And I have this in my book, and I think some people will agree with me and some people wouldn't agree with me. But I think when you sit on a job for 10, 12, 13, 14, 20 years, and you've been so unhappy, you're not really in the driver's seat. You're allowing that organization to drive you. But when I talk about speed dating jobs, you're in the driver's seat. You're saying, today, I want to be able to be with an organization for 12 to 24 months to build my brand, to get new skills, to meet new people, to maximize my salary. And then if I do want to move on from that job, I can move on and I can leverage whatever I got from that job into the new job. So speed dating jobs is allowing you to never be at the red light too long. If we want to talk about being in the driver's seat, right? Never been at the red light too long. You want to be able to get to a place where you're constantly yielding, speeding, because there are going to be times when you do have to break, but you want to break for the right job, right? That makes sense for your career.
I love how you're just weaving in the right language for the driver's seat and all that. I love it. So I love the concept of speed dating jobs. How do you do it? Or what do you tell your clients, Kanika, about that not being a negative thing, about, it's kind of like job hopping?
I think at one time there was a negative look at that. Back when the baby boomers and the Gen Xers were working, there was a time where, if you job hop, it looked bad in a sense. But I think speed dating jobs could be a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan. It really is. It's really up to you. It's just that you have to know when it's time to go from the Toyota to the Lexus, when it's time to go from, maybe you're expanding your family and you're saying, hey, it's time for my career to feel more like an SUV. I just think that we can't put a time. When I say speed dating job, I think a lot of people in my family, they have been at the same job for 10, 20, 30 years. And some people have retired from one organization. I think that they weren't in the driver's seat. So I think you are in the driver's seat to know when it's time to level up and go to the next level with the next vehicle that's going to be able to provide you the career happiness that you deserve. We always start in a smaller vehicle when we first start driving, but sometimes when we expand our horizon, we go to more of a luxury level. And you should feel that way about your career.
You guys, I'm hiring Kanika to kind of be my salesperson, or my, I'm trying to find the word that I'm using. I could see this in a commercial clearly before me right now. That sounds very, very good.
I definitely will do that for you. I will endorse. I love the theme of this podcast. And I thought about it and I said, this is how we're going to talk about career development and career progression in the driver's seat.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. Tell us about how you embrace risk, because I think risk is necessary. We have to bet on ourselves and take risk in our career. And some of us are better at it than others. So tell us how you look at risk and what advice you could give to people about embracing risk.
Risk is very important when you're talking about a career change, because some people look at career changes as being very risky, right? Because you're going from one industry into another. So a lot of my clients, they are scared about a career change, going from, IT to now, maybe wanting to be in HR. I think embracing career risk is basically thinking about what's transferable. A lot of times we're looking at the risk as if there's nothing that's transferable from one role to the next or one industry to the next. So I think to mitigate those risks, we have to identify what are some things that can come over from another role or another opportunity that we've already learned. We have to leverage, I think, a lot of our lessons learned. And I think sometimes we don't sit back and do a lot of career reflection on when we work on projects at jobs, we're always told to look at lessons learned. I think we can actually do better at managing risk when we have to take those leaps of faith, or we have to take those times to just jump out there. I think there's a lot of things that we can learn from old battles that can prepare us for new battles or new risk.
Wonderful. Can you think about a time in your career where, before we were talking about hands off, not being in the driver's seat, so maybe being the passenger, where you had your hands off the wheel in your career and what you did to overcome it?
So had my hands off the wheel, like I was in the passenger seat, or?
Yeah, someone else was responsible for the trajectory of your career.
I would say the responsibility the success that I've gotten in my career when it wasn't me having my hands on the wheel was when I have had good sponsors and mentors in my career. I think it's so important to understand that there's someone that's going to teach you how to drive. Like when you go to driving school and you learn how to drive for the very first time, you have this person in the passenger seat either coaching you or telling you, or your parent is coaching or telling you. I think there are opportunities within the workplace for good managers that you have or good mentors that you have to be able to be the person that actually is steering the wheel for you. So in my career, when I was working at the Department of HUD and I was just really, really a young African-American woman. I was in college. I was a stay-in-school student. A lot of older Black women, they put their arms around me and they actually stirred me in the right direction. For instance, they would say, you know, you're 15, 20 minutes late. You know that's not on time. Or, hey, today I know it's Friday and you put on jeans. I don't really think that's going to be a good idea for you to wear jeans to work because that's sending the wrong sign, or your jeans are too tight, or just simple things like, you know, making sure that I understood how to expand my network and to be open to meet new people. For me, sometimes when I was younger, I thought that I knew it all and I thought that I was so smart that I thought that I was driving, and I really was not driving. I really was probably going in reverse, or I was in park or in neutral because I wasn't allowing people to show me how to properly drive my career. So those women, they're amazing women. They just were like mentors to me and showed me like how a career woman's supposed to carry herself.
I love all your stories. They're so heartwarming. You went to the place of sponsorship, and I think a lot of people don't understand the value of having a sponsor, an advocate, a champion. Talk to us about how beneficial that has been to you in your career, and any recommendations to our listeners about getting a sponsor on their team.
I think it's so important to get a sponsor because this usually is somebody that endorses you. And sometimes it's somebody that really doesn't always directly work with you or manage you. This could be somebody that you just interact with on a very, very like small time basis. But for me, for instance, I'll use an example because I'm very example driven. I was on the elevator with my leadership. Another man came onto the elevator and he knows me. And he said, "Hey, Nick, you know Kanika?" He was like, "Yeah, she's my employee." And he said, "That's a rock star right there." And I met this man in orientation. We've never had professional working relationships with me. Like we never actually worked together on a project, but he was sponsoring me off of conversations that we had at orientations, conversations we had when we grabbed coffee just to chat, conversations of just when he saw me in the hallway carrying myself in a certain way or in meetings. Sometimes a sponsor could be someone that just has a short-term interaction with you, but they see something significant in you that they could tell your leadership, "Hey, pay attention because this is a rock star right here." So for me, I've been dealing with some challenges with my direct leadership who are probably not sponsors, to be honest with you. They're not. But there are people that are advocating around me that are saying, "This young lady, you don't know the power of who this young lady is." And this has nothing to do with career coaching. It really has to do with how you network with other people. Sometimes the people that you network could turn out to be your sponsor.
Wonderfully said. Wonderfully said. So what resources have you found to be helpful to you on your career journey, online or otherwise?
I'm a big reader. So I'm writing a book, but I haven't been able to read a book in like 9 months because I'm writing my own book. I read a lot of self-development and leadership books because I was telling someone that it's important for me to not lead the way I've been led inappropriately. If someone's been leading me inappropriately or I have been under bad leadership, in order for me to lead my team successfully, I have to learn how to be a good leader. So I definitely think that reading is important. I am a big fan of reading short articles that are like on Inc., Forbes, entrepreneur.com. I'm a big fan of just reading and consuming small chunks of information because I get overwhelmed with a lot of information. Podcasts, like your podcast show and a lot of other, industry related podcast shows I listen to. Online learning, I'm a big fan of lynda.com, udemy.com. I'm a big fan of YouTube, which is free. There's so many things that you can learn on YouTube just watching a video. So I'm a big fan of video learning, but I'm also a big fan of observing other people. Good, strong people. So if there's something like if I wanted to really learn how to be the driver's seat of my career, and there's a senior level leader or a C-level executive that I feel like is really driving their career in the right direction, I'm very observant of their work ethic, their style. So that's me. I'm more so I try to learn from the great people around me.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think that, one of the things that I admire about you, Kanika, is that I follow you on social media, and I feel like you're hustling all the time and putting in the work that's required. I tell people you have to take action to get results. You can't just expect it to happen. And so I see you talking a lot about professional development and how you are investing in learning these different technologies on these different platforms. So I think, I notice, because I'm a lifelong learner as well. And so, I think that's an important thing to do.
Yeah, I do too. I always tell my clients that, if you learn more, you can earn more. It's really impossible for you to put a limit on your career when you continue to expand your knowledge. The moment that you stop expanding your knowledge is the moment that you're not being able to brand, market, and sell yourself. Because in this digital age, especially in the industry like information technology, the technology it's just so fast paced. It's just so much to learn. But I think it's important for us to not just learn technical skills, but how to improve our soft skills. I think a lot of people miss out on being able to speak well, do briefings, do presentations. And sometimes I think it's really important to be able to be a good communicator too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So tell us a heartwarming story about you being in the driver's seat and being able to make something happen.
Okay. So I feel like I want to tell the story about my book publishing deal.
Okay. Go ahead.
I think you've heard this before on social media, but I definitely think I want the readers to know that this is something that is really dear to me, because people don't understand that there's a huge rejection rate in the publishing industry. So I've been trying to get a book deal for 2-3 years. Publishers weren't interested. So I pitched my first book deal. I pitched my first book proposal. It got declined by 30, plus publishers. So me and my agent, we went back to the drawing board, and we decided to come up. I was actually pitching Life Rehab. So we went back to the drawing board, and I said, well, let's pitch Career Rehab. Still, maybe 20 some publishers said, no, this idea, we don't want to do this idea. So for maybe 6 months, I didn't hear anything from anyone. So Entrepreneur called me, and they said, hey, is that Kanika girl? She still want to do a book? And my agent, we scheduled the call. So I pitched them on the phone about what Career Rehab was and what it meant and how it would benefit, all generation of professionals. They loved it. They went silent for 6 months after the phone call. So I thought they're not interested. So during that 6 months, I decided to write for Glassdoor. I decided to start my own podcast tour and pitch myself to be on podcast shows like yours and Minda's, Hearts, and to be on, I was on maybe 20 plus podcast shows. I decided to take ownership and get in the driver's seat of my personal brand, because whether I got a book deal or not, I needed to create some digital footprint. So when they came back, they said, what you been doing? We need your Twitter. We need all your blog posts from Glassdoor. We need to hear all your podcast shows. We need to know where you've been speaking at, because we want to, think about giving you the book deal. If I didn't create that opportunity, I was depressed and so sad in the beginning that I wasn't getting a book deal. But if I got depressed and stayed in that depression, I would have never got the book deal, because when they came back around, I would have never had all of these accomplishments to show them that I was still running with the idea that I could be an author. So I would tell anyone, if someone tells you no, create your own yes. That's what you have to do. You really do. So.
Yeah, I once heard at a conference that no means next opportunity, and I never forgot it. So. Yeah.
Wow, I like that.
Yeah, me too.
I like that. And I think, do you feel like when people tell you no, it's sometimes I felt like at times I was told no, that I wasn't ready. I honestly can look back on the past and say, when they said no, my personal brand or my career or where I was at, maybe I just wasn't ready for that opportunity. And then sometimes it's a no and they really just they're not looking for you. That's not the person they want. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think, Kanika, I think a lot is when it's for you, it's for you. And my mom always tell me that if it's for you, it'll be for you. And I sort of feel like the no's that I've gotten, I have energetically felt that they were going to be no's. And when it was going to be a yes, I energetically felt that way. And I have posted on social media interviews that I've had, for business. When I go and it feels good, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the best interview I've ever had in my life. We connected. It didn't feel like an interview. And I just kind of felt jazzed about it. But when it doesn't go well, I'm like, it just didn't feel right. We didn't click or didn't feel good to me. So I didn't expect it to be a good result. But sometimes when it still comes and they say the no, it hurts. But I knew that the no was coming. I don't know. I get some insights on that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think for those that are wanting to be in the driver's seat of their career, just look at a no as like maybe a slight detour. Maybe a no could just be that, you're in a traffic jam right now and you have to be able to figure out I consider no sometimes just a setback or a delay. I don't consider a no meaning that you're not going to get to your destination. You know what I mean? You may have to take another route. You may have to recalculate like the GPS says. You may have to come up with an alternate route. But when you get to that destination, whatever that destination is, just know that it's going to be on the right time for you. And I think social media has created a lot of self-comparison. And I think that we look at a lot of people that we think that are getting a lot of yeses. I really try to share online that I get a lot of no's. I don't want you guys to ever think that it's just always winning. But I just, I don't get knocked out. I get knocked down, but no one ever knocks me out.
I don't know why I was just thinking about Aaliyah's song about when you were saying that. I love that, dust yourself off and try again, because that's what it's about. And I think the no's are fuel to get back up and try again. That's how I look at it.
And I think the no's for me have been like basic training. It's like, hey, I need to assess my brand. I need to assess how I'm driving. Am I driving too slow? Am I driving too fast? Am I, maybe I need to change my gas from, pre to premium. Maybe I need to level up something to get to a level where I'm not using 89, but I'm using 93 gas so I can drive a little bit smoother. You know what I mean? I just think sometimes we have to also take a step back and assess how we're driving ourselves, because sometimes we think that the way we're driving ourselves needs no improvement, it needs no self-development, it needs no rebranding or maybe some enhancements. I think it's so important to say what's been working and what's not been working.
Well said. Well said. Well, as we wrap up, tell us, how do we get the book? How do we stay connected with you? Give us that information.
Okay. You definitely can get the book on Amazon. You can pre-order it. The book comes out in January. It's called Career Rehab. You can also reach out to me on all social media outlets at Kanika Tolver. So I'm on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube. So I do have a YouTube channel that I'm going to be getting very active and up and going soon. So maybe I can have you on the show. The Career Rehab show. We definitely can talk more about the driver's seat. And you can reach me at kanikatolver.com. So if you guys want to reach out for career coaching, or you can sign up for our newsletter, you definitely can reach out to me on kanikatolver.com.
Awesome. Kanika, thank you so much for being a guest on the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. As always, I learned so much from my guests. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. It is my hope that you enjoyed today's episode. You can check out the show notes for this episode on the SimoneMorrisEnterprises.org website by clicking the podcast menu.
Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and tell a friend or two about it.